I really thought this was going to work. It didn't.
It was about becoming extraordinary. We were on the cusp of something really quite evolutionary. I think what you've got to recognise with a jeweller is that, along with your doctor, it's such a personal relationship that you have. This whole permission and trust thing is something that's like ultra special.
What the internet doesn't offer.
Dad said to me, Wes, look, it's about time your grandmother retired, right? So do you mind going and having a chat with her? You're going to have to go and tell her that she can't work anymore. No, it was me. I remember it. And I had to tell my grandmother, which is his mother, right, that she could no longer work in the business.
So if you had fallouts?
We've had some ding-dongs.
I remember going upstairs and there was a big hole in the cupboard door. And I said, Wes, who's damaged that door? He went, oh, I did. I lost my temper. So he's put his fist through a wooden door. One of the stories that you ought to include, more than probably anything that I can remember in my life, is if it snows on Christmas Day,
you get your money back.
back.
So we advertised it very clearly. It just said, if it snows on Christmas Day at 12 o'clock, we would give the customers their money back.
All the customers.
All the customers.
Not just one.
Yeah.
No, all of them.
Yeah. So let's just say it's £1 million. Steff had managed to get insurance.
How did you manage to get that?
So when we got to the point where we're getting close to Christmas Eve, I thought we'll take out £800,000 worth of insurance. We got to the weekend and I asked the girl in the office where we were on how much money we'd taken. We're about £250,000 short.
That meant if it snowed on Christmas, we'd have to find £250,000.
Actually started seeing a psychologist at 40 because I wrote in toothpaste on the mirror, help.
Before you start this episode, please can you click subscribe below and follow our social handles in the description. It's a massive help and it keeps you up to date with all the exciting announcements from the podcast. Lovely. Well, thank you very much, gents, for coming in and seeing us today. Appreciate you giving up some time to come on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
That's all right. No, anytime. I'm going to throw you both in at the deep end. It's the first question it's the same one that I do with everybody. So I'm going to throw you in. Obviously, Steffans has been going over 40 years, so there's a heck of a journey.
2 years short of 50.
2 years short, so 48 years. Yeah. So 76, wasn't it? 76. I think, yeah. So there's a heck of a journey there and a lot to talk about and a lot to cover in a short space of time. But I'm going to challenge you both to see if you can sort of cover that journey in a couple of minutes. Pick out the meaningful points and see if you can go through your Steffans journey from the start to where you are now and seeing if you can do it in a minute or two.
Right. Well, I wasn't born in the first part of it, so Steff will have to do series 1.
Are you up for the challenge?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? Fire away, Steff.
Well, it probably goes back to my school days when I actually had an opportunity to raise money for the school. And I did that through selling off bits of second-hand jewellery. Right? Obviously, it wasn't in the jewellery trade. And as a result of that, I got a commendation, right, at a very rough school.
Yeah.
Okay. And liked the idea that the teachers would congratulate him and everything. And I raised enough money for a minibus, a second-hand one.
Okay.
And it was taken to Longtown, which was Wales, the mountain and the hills or whatever.
I've been to Longtown actually on a school trip, yeah.
And they allowed me to sit in the front seat because of the fact that I'd raised this money. That was the beginning of what I thought. Now I'm starting to like things that maybe women would be more attracted to than men generally, which is how it turns out to be anyway. So I started work in Northampton with a company called Knight & Son, which was part of a family business, right? And I was there for probably about 6 months, and then I moved on to a company called Gleason's, which was opposite where my shop is now. And Gleason made me realise that you could buy things and sell them and make a profit, hopefully. So I had a bit of a fallout with him at that time. And so I went off and thought I'm going to do what most of us would do, and that is I'll show you what I'm made of.
Yeah.
I was like young, and I was 24 at the time, right? So I opened the shop dead opposite his, absolutely bang opposite, which is like competition. And he wasn't very nice to me in the latter part. I got on right with him as time went on.
Yeah.
So I was on one side of the road, he was on the other, and the unit that I went into, I'd got a great big picture of me, and it said Steff opens his own shop at last, which really it's like one up sort of shit.
Yeah.
And then gradually things came available, like the shop next door. So I had the shop next door, and then one on the corner came up, and I negotiated that one and got that one there. I mean, there's about 5 purchases gone into getting that building.
Yeah.
Because I almost got a bit worried about the fact that if you rented property, then you're in the hands of the landlord. So that's why I decided the best way was try to acquire them.
Yeah.
And you had a challenging landlord in the early stages.
Yeah, in the early stages, I had a landlord that was actually very, very astute, and he used to get me to go to every 5 years when the rent review was up. He'd make me go along to his office, and he would sit in a high chair and put me in a low down chair. So I realised instantly that what he was doing, he was making me feel, like he was in charge.
Yeah.
And I kept saying to him, look, why don't you sell it to me, the building? Because really and truthfully, no, he said, I'm not selling it. In fact, he said, I've got another jeweller interested in it. So if you do leave, and he was clever, he was a businessman. In fact, his son is a politician.
A prominent politician,
an MP. Yeah. So that was a quick learning stage. That this guy was slick.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably dead now. He must be 90 odd. That gave me more confidence. The fact that I knew whatever I did in there to make it better, to make it look better, was in the interest of the company rather than not.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas before, when I was renting it,
I'd
be doing things to it, and it'd be in his benefit.
Yeah.
So if I sort of decided to put a new lighting system in, I paid for it, never got it back.
Yeah.
Yep. And as time went on, I sort of got to the point where I just felt that each year I'd got to do something to the shop.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you've. Am I going to have my 2 minutes?
No, you keep going.
You sure?
You have, but don't worry.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Oh, well, it's difficult to tell a story from
it doesn't.
50 years.
Yeah.
And then I opened a shop up in Market Harbour purely because I loved what the town looked like.
Yeah.
Very artistic. I started to find that I'd got an artistic bend that I didn't realise I'd got probably when I was at school.
Yeah.
So I started to think, I could do this and I could do that. I started painting watercolours, and as a way of relaxing. And more, I thought, I'm getting away with this. I'm doing things like putting a Spitfire in the shop hanging from the ceiling, and nobody's gone, why have you got that Spitfire hanging from the ceiling?
Yeah.
Then I think, right, I'll stick some old vintage Union Jacks up. And all the other jewellers in the country weren't doing that, nobody, right? So we started to build this reputation, if you like, a bit like yourself, a guru for people that were third generation family businesses.
Yeah.
Those people that ran those third generation family businesses were very stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
So when I started work, and I think I told you this last time we met, that I had to call my boss sir, right? So whenever I was having a conversation with him, it was sir. He would go to work in a suit that was a morning suit and starched collar. I mean, it was really like going back in time. It's really different to now.
Yeah.
And I've immediately wanted to go against that and think, ugh, that looks awful. You need to move on and just have a bit more of a friendly appearance and things like that. And so I left there knowing that if I continued the way that I was going, I was obviously going to upset the industry because they're thinking, who's this bloke?
You're doing something completely different.
Doing all crazy things. I mean, one of the things that I did was a suspender clip that goes on your stockings, not your stockings, by the way, and had a woman's leg out of a car, right, okay, with a suspender on it. Yep.
As the advert.
Yeah.
As the advert, yeah, sorry. And that would be in solid silver or solid gold. Now, that was really pushing it in those days because that was seen as being too sexy, they would have said then. But everybody liked it. And I started selling it, right? So then the next stage on, I thought, well, I got away with that. And nobody's really come and knocked on my door and said, that's terrible. So after that, I decided I would do the thing with, I'm trying to think of the woman's name. She just died, actually, and there was 2 of them, and there was a song, da 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 da, and then it'd go, yes, I love you, right? So this was a very sexual sort of advert, and it said at the end, the only thing she'll be wearing on her wedding night is a wedding ring from Steffans, right? Of course, that conjures up in a guy's mind that he's in bed with this woman and she's naked. So those sort of things I used to
just completely different and unique from anybody else.
Absolutely, yeah. So
and trying to make people shock people, look and listen. That has been Steff's. I would suggest less so mine, but it's definitely been Steff's mantra is to try and shock and awe.
Yeah.
Shock and awe. I think you're right there. I think you're right.
So how's the business sort of evolved over that time?
Well, I suppose then that neatly leads on to my entrance into the business, which was about 25 years ago. And
just 25.
Yeah, it is. And I always say I was preordained for the job. I don't think I really had a choice to do anything else.
Yeah.
I always remember Dad celebrating 25 years of Steffans. There's a video of us all down under a bar in Northampton. On the Welly Road, and Dad looked at me and said, "My son will take over the business one day." And as a son, all you really want is your father's approval.
Yeah.
And that's followed me sadly across my lifetime. But I think the point was that I came into it with some pretty heavy boots to fill.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things where really for us it was a perfect time, because this was the emergence of branded jewellery. We had Links of London, we had Thomas Sabo, we had Troll Beads, we had Pandora, and I probably was instrumental in developing the brand offering when it was at its very peak. The websites had just been developed. We were one of the first jewellers in the UK to have a website.
And we won the best website.
We did the Jewellery Awards. Yeah, we got an accolade for our innovative design of our website. There's a website that I helped design, which was Steff going in a lift. This was when websites were really, really slow. And there's this website that we created where the engine did for us, where Steff, there's a little caricature of Steff in a lift.
What it actually was, just to remind you,
go on.
They very much like yourself. They were your sort of generation.
Yeah.
And I can't remember how I met them, but I went along to see them. It was obviously something to do with websites and things.
Through Glenallen.
Yeah. And they just got rid of the website that got me to go there in the first place, which was a time machine, right? And this time machine would go, which you can't imagine now with a website, can it?
This is when they're all handmade. This was all completely developed by hand.
Right at the beginning,
I really thought this was going to work. It didn't, to be fair. It was great to look at, because then the ring would drop down into a transparent pipe.
Yeah.
And it would go, the bubbles would start to come up, and then it would go into that, and then very much like this vintage industrial look.
Yeah.
It was really like the beginning of that, and then it would drop and go bing, and then I'd convey it back to go, very Monty Python sort of style. Yeah. So I said to them, can't I buy your old one? And they both, the guys, the partners, looked at each other to say, we've got a nutter here. He wants to buy our old website. Nobody buys old websites. You're going backwards if you do that. So I managed to acquire it for, I think, about £500, right, which I was well pleased with, because how long and how much money it cost to set a website up. But it never really sold anything.
Well, back in the day, it was a lot more. It was 20,000 to develop a website from scratch.
Yeah. So we got this website, and we got plenty of comments on it saying it's mental. It's very Monty Python.
But it didn't convert.
But it didn't convert to sales. Right. So that was lesson number one. But it could have been a lot more expensive lesson.
It was like Steff buying a piece of art, right?
Yeah.
That happened to be of himself.
Yeah.
So it was all about Dad.
Yeah, well, the lift would open, wasn't it? And I was standing. I mean, I was prepared to put myself up.
I know, they made a caricature of Steff. Yeah.
Right, and then I'm standing there like that. And I can't remember whether
the lift went up as you pushed the button.
It did. Yeah.
It's very, very,
but
very.
You wouldn't mirror that up with somebody in your industry. It's completely different.
No,
totally,
it was nobody would even dare do that.
Yeah.
Right. No. But the point was that it was about becoming extraordinary or extraordinary. And I think, as I said before, I think that's really where Steff excels. But anyway, going back to what we were saying, we were in the midst of a development of our industry, which was for jewellery to become branded. And our industry is archaic, really, when you think about it. When you really break it down, we had the fashion industry, the rag trade, who were doing everything that fashion did. And our industry has always been the last to change because it's been very much based around, as Steff says, multi-generational family businesses. And they've been apprehensive to change and to evolve and to adapt. And I think about the Pandora days of when Pandora came along and they bought all of the personnel from the rag trade into the jewellery industry, and they just turned it on its head. They created training, they created KPIs, they created all the things that we all thought were completely alien, and really that's changed our business for what Pandora's done for the bad of our industry. It's also done some incredible things for the good, and we still have a relationship with all of the brands that we've had relationships over the years, and it's been it's been a real journey. But that was just we were on the cusp of something really quite evolutionary, really, at that time.
Yeah.
And I remember Dad and I going down to Selfridges. And I remember standing in Selfridges Wonder Room at the time, and I said, Dad, we've got to replicate this. And there was Theo Fennell as a shopping shop, there was Sean Lean as a shopping shop, Thomas Sabo, Swarovski, and we took all of those brands and brought them back to Northampton, and created.
Northampton, incidentally, is not an easy nut to crack. If ever I speak to other people who are starting businesses, I've said, if you can actually survive here, you will survive anywhere, because it is a tough market, Northampton.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Boot and shoe, basically, I think, which, people hadn't got a lot of money. A lot of people were making shoes in the garden, in a little shed, and that's just how it was. And there wasn't any jobs about that were where people were getting 150,000 a year, that sort of thing. And then we started to attract these people that actually quite like the fact that Steffans was eccentric, right? Yeah. And they do funny things like send you a Valentine's card with a big kiss on it from Steffans. They like that because they never had that ever before.
Yeah.
So we didn't only attract the, if you like, the average consumer. We attracted these people, mostly men, incidentally, who would buy expensive pieces for their loved ones, their wives, at Christmas time. I mean, the other thing I think worth mentioning, because there's actually three, well, probably four of us within the business now that actually put effort in. There's my daughter, which is the sister of Wesley. She used to work for Levi's.
Okay. Yeah.
And what I'd learned from her, right, because you've got to remember Wesley's 4 years younger than Ellie as well, right? So Wesley was just like, she came out, I think she went to university, she did. And suddenly I've got two of them, both wanting to get involved in the business, right? Two people. So it wasn't like one had got a 4-year start. It was almost like they were at
similar times,
horses, ready to go on a racetrack. And because she'd worked there, she made me realise that the 501s, which probably most people don't know what a 501 is now, are they still going 501s?
501s, yeah, you got it.
And I'd go in there to pick her up at night, like he probably picks his daughter up from places, and I'd realised that they've got stacks of 501s, but they weren't sending many of the other ones.
Yeah.
Now that taught me a lesson very quickly that that's something I'm not doing. I'm dealing with these people who want one-offs. And my daughter used to say to me, Ellie, she would say, Dad, you've got an opportunity to sell more of those, right, of that thing that you're saying you've only got one of, by increasing the stock that you've got. Which at the same time, the internet came up, right, and then you started to realise that people were buying the same thing. So, Wesley, for example, has just bought some items to go on there for Christmas. It just happens to be coming up at the moment to Black Friday.
Yeah.
And he will have to buy those in quantity, right? Because if you don't, you've lost that opportunity that you don't very often get, apart from Black Friday, to move a lot of items.
Yeah.
So, we have to pick something, which we do earlier on the year, and then we market that. So I would say she tends to be more office bound. I don't think my daughter is as keen on being on the shop floor as probably Wesley and I, because it's quite stressful job dealing with people that that sometimes don't know what they want. And we carried on that side. She actually spends more time in the office, and so there are 3 people. Then I met a lady who, ended up marrying, right? And she's a jewellery designer, so that again added to it. And so now, really, when we have our little board meetings, we all sit round the table and have to work together, because another generation comes in, another members of the family. So I think, that to me is, again, because we don't all think the same way. Perhaps Ellie, for example, will be less risque about doing a crazy window display, which we do. We do things like, the Beatles, when that came up, we did all the displays around that. She's probably a little bit more conservative with the small C. So
in terms of that, then, what I'm quite interested in is this family dynamic within the business, because there must be difficult parts of that. There must be some great parts of that as well, which make it incredibly rewarding.
Let me give you the first bit of advice: don't work with family.
That's what everybody says, isn't it?
Don't work with family. Don't work with family.
Yeah,
the dynamics. Okay, so I was raised in a family business, and one of the things that I think, I have a lot of friends who have got family business, whether it be Paula Thackeray's or the McManuses or whoever it might be, local guys who are in family businesses, who have also got a heavy burden of a second generation or third generation, and it's a tough racket. It's just a tough racket. I remember the conversations around our dinner table were about the business, right, and that was ordinary, right. Now
they still are,
and they still are.
Yeah, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. My daughter lives in the same village as me, right, and Wesley lives in probably 2 villages away from that, but we don't see each other very often on a family occasion, right, because we see so much of each other during
in the day-to-day.
I would say, I think again, when I met the other day, I said that I actually started seeing a psychologist at 40, and the reason for that is because I wrote in toothpaste on the mirror, "Help," right? Now that just so happens to be a great Beatles song as well, "Help," but that's not what I was thinking about. I was just thinking my brain's going to explode because I've got so many things going on with family. I mean, I can tell you that I've virtually employed every single member of my family, apart from the generation that Wesley and Ellie have got. They've sort of learned from it. But all these people are connected. I've had my brother. I've got 2 brothers. I've got a stepbrother and a real brother. And the stepbrother came into the business. He ended up being a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
So that meant he didn't work at Christmas. He didn't work on Sundays because they weren't allowed to do that. Lots of things that they...
And just to add to that, you were in a business with your other brother doing property.
I was doing that as well, yeah. And it's just, well, he knows him because of his relationship, because he's only a few doors away.
Yeah.
He's more eccentric than all of us lot put together, I think. But, so I like helping people. I've always liked doing that. Again, probably to do with adulation when somebody says thank you. That was great of you to do that, and that comes back to you over the years. And people say, "Oh, you said do this, and I did it, and I made all this money from it." Right? I don't seem to do that for myself, but I seem to like doing it for other people. As you probably know, when I started talking to you this morning about is this big enough for what you're looking for in the future? So talking about family, I think some of it is about you can trust family, okay. But we know that's not completely true. Otherwise, they'd all get on together and not fall out. So that in itself is not easy. I've also, don't forget, got my wife, who I've been married to for 13 years, right? Who's in that business by contributing designs that they might not like, right? So you've got to broker that. You've got to be the referee that says.
Well, so is that where you think you sit as it stands today? As a referee. Are you the middle ground of mediation?
Consigliere, I think is the term.
That is. I've learned from.
It must be a difficult gig to play.
It is. But don't forget, as I was saying, I learned from a psychologist, right? Or psychotherapist, actually, and I used to go to her once a month, right? And I did that for 20 years, right? And she taught me what to say and what not to say, okay? And that applied to customers. So as I was learning, I was talking to customers about, let's just say, a watch. In those days, it would have been probably a watch. And I'd show them the watch, and I would start to say things like, is this for a special occasion, let's say, for example, right? And then we get on to the fact that her children are growing up, and one of them, for example, has run off, and I'm starting now to get into the psychology of the customers, so I'm showing an interest, and now without realising it, I'm creating almost a queue of customers that'll say, I'll wait and see Steff, right? Yeah. And I can remember that period in my life, which was horrendous, and really having to be available for these people all the time, right? In the end, wasn't so much fun.
But actually, I think what you've got to recognise with a jeweller is that we deal in. It's probably, along with your doctor, it's such a personal relationship that you have.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be, I mean, Steff and I were driving along in the car, and I've just had some customer call me and tell me that he's just parted with his wife. Now, he's a customer, right? Yeah. I've known him for a very short period of time, right? But how the hell that customer's decided to digress that information to me in a very short space of time. So this whole permission and trust thing is something that's like ultra special when it comes to a
But
jeweler.
it's what the internet doesn't offer.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, it's that it's real personalised relationship.
And then our personalities ramp it up another level. And because of the fact that we're very open in the first place, and that makes people feel comfortable, and then people start to tell you their problems, people start to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, and all of a sudden, I mean, look, I remember, I've got another instance where a customer of mine had, and I'm not going to name any names, but I was in a car park, and a lady was in tears over something that happened with her husband, and I'm in the car park with her husband, with this lady, right, who by the way was plenty years my senior, and I was consoling her because of what had happened with her husband, and that relationship doesn't exist if you're selling a car. It doesn't exist if you're selling a house. It only exists when you've got a relationship with a doctor or a professional or a jeweller. So it's this very weird line that we cross, Aaron. And sometimes, although you know Steff has created it, I've kind of followed it on really without knowing. And when you look back on it retrospectively, it's quite a burden to carry. Actually,
we have a very good relationship, right? Because the person that taught me at the psychologist or psychotherapist, right, taught me and also met Wesley, right? So she could see, obviously, because that's what she was focused on in why I was having problems in putting help on the mirror, for example, right? She could see that Wesley was going to go through the same thing as what I've gone through. And I'm going to teach you how to deal with Wesley, whereas your dad was a traffic warden, right? He didn't go to a psychotherapist.
So he didn't have the skills.
He left your mum when you were 5 and all those sort of things, okay? So that relationship we've got, I always say to Wesley, look, I'm there. If you need me, you know, call me. That sounds like the beginning of a song. But
it is the beginning of a song.
Yeah. So really, when what I learnt from it is that this lady used to say I was quite like a vicar. Okay, now I never ever want to be a vicar, right? But she said you're quite like a vicar, and I said, what makes you say that? Well, she said you're a constant in people's lives, right? And I said I hardly knew at the time what a constant was. I think, to be honest with you, and she said, tell me anybody in Northampton that's actually been working the circuit for as long as you have. She said, you know, you there isn't, right? You are. I mean, even a politician doesn't stay in for 50 odd years. He has been a politician very rarely. Because your customer, Lord Naseby, he's actually probably been in it for 50 odd years.
Michael has, House of Lords, House of Commons.
Yeah. So, you know, we got to this situation where I'm dealing with people and I'm there every year they come back, right? So that created again a relationship thing where I get invited to their weddings, I get invited to their christenings and all those things, which was great at first, right? But as time goes on, you know, I think, oh no more.
It's hard because of the scale.
It's become time poor.
Well, that's happening to him now.
Yeah, I'll get invited on stag do's to customers that I've sold wedding rings to.
Yeah,
and I end up asking, "Are you sure you want me to come?" Right?
Yeah.
Because I'm dumbfounded by it. I don't, but I'm also honoured, by the way. But I'm like, well, I don't really know anybody who's going. And then I get invited to the weddings and all those things. So that, as I said, that relationship is really the key to it all. And Dad, back in the day, Dad coined a catchphrase which sadly hangs over me like a dark cloud. But love, service, love, Steffans. And that became something that really just put a benchmark there that meant that you had to kick it every time. And if you didn't, then you were reminded, look, it says
and we
there,
still
love,
use
service,
it
love,
now.
Steffans.
We still use it now. And really, in a way, that again was ahead of the internet. That was that far back in history. But it's all about people love the sound of their own name. Right, so Wes has got a very good memory for names. I've got a terrible memory.
Well,
so
I don't know whether I have.
I bluff it, right, and I'll go, "You're right. How are you doing?" I don't need the name because I hope they'll never ever say you don't know who I am. But Wesley will quite often say to me, "Dad, do you know?"
Yeah, you know who this is, don't you?
You know this is, don't you, Dad?
Yeah.
And I think, oh God,
Thanks a lot for dropping me in it.
I'm 72. I can't remember. Sometimes where I park the car. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like,
but Steff,
I get out of it.
What you got to recognise is that's me getting my own back on all the years when I was when I remember one where this is so funny, and I suppose this is what the podcast is all about. It's about rekindling these stories. But I remember these two. I must have been the best part of about 18. I was fresh in the business, and these two most beautiful, and when I say most beautiful, they look like they must have been on in a show in Derngate or something like that. They were just extraordinarily beautiful. They came in the shop, and I was in the window, and Steff turned around to me and went, turned around to these girls and said, "Girls, you know my son, right?" And I went, "Huh?" And I went bright red. And he goes, because he's just called you babe.
That was it.
That you're a babe, right?"
No, I think I said, "Do you know my son Wes?"
Right.
Because he's just called you babe. I acted stupid.
Babes.
Yeah.
Babes. And I think I got you to drop off at the train station.
And I just died. Right? So he used to get me a lot when I was young.
You're getting your own back now.
It's this strange banter between father and son that we've had that's kept it quite competitive, actually, I'd say.
Yeah.
So when we go back to a couple of things that have come out of that. So there's some really nice stories. How do you deal with people that have got different opinions? How does that all work?
Oh God, that's a good question. That is a very good question. Are we talking customers or team?
Both. I mean, let's start with the family. So you've got different people that bring different things to the business, but all deliver. They've all got the same DNA running through them, which is they want the business to be success. They believe in the culture of what you're trying to create, what you have created. But they operate in different ways. You're very different to Wes, and you mentioned that Ellie brings something different as well. So how does that work practically?
Not very well.
It doesn't.
It doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. I mean,
so have you had fallouts? Have you had situations where?
God, we've had so many fallouts.
We've had some ding dongs.
We've had Wesley. I mean, again, I remember going upstairs because we've got like 3 floors, and there was a big hole in the cupboard door, and I said, "Wes, who's damaged that door?" He went, "Oh, I did. I lost my temper." So he's put his fist through a wooden door.
And what was that off the back of?
The testosterone.
I seem to remember it was something to do with my brother, my stepbrother, who worked for us for a short time. Well, I say a short time, probably about 10 years. And because new boy comes into the business and my stepbrother is already established in there. Very studious type of bloke. Very knowledgeable. He just reads books and doesn't go to the pictures or anything like that. He's very knowledgeable. Right? So he's a completely different character to Wesley. So he's Wesley's uncle.
Well, no, and also, what you've got to remember is Steff raised my uncle, Steff's stepbrother. He raised him as a son. So I'm the second son in essence.
His dad died when he was 14, and his dad was 59, and he was an army sergeant major in the army. And when he died, I instantly took the place of his dad, right, which is just part of my personality again. That I like I like being able to help people, really.
But what you've got to understand, Darren, is Steff puts all these collective of people together.
Yeah.
Right? So it is a melting pot of testosterone, hormones, all these things, different opinions, right? And what happens is it kicks off. I mean, I remember Steff employed his mother, right? My grandmother.
I'm just thinking the same thing.
And
Somebody
Dad,
must be speaking to us.
And Dad asked me, Dad said to me, Wes, look, it's about time your grandmother retired, right? So do you mind going and having a chat with her and just explaining to her that you're
softly wanting to
you're gonna have to
swerve that one then.
You're gonna have to go and tell her
And
that she can't work anymore. No, it was me. I remember it. I remember it was over the road from the shop, which is now Pizza Express. And anyway, so we'd sat there, and I had to tell my grandmother, which is his mother, right, that she could no longer work in the business, and she hated that, and she held that against me.
Gave you really,
no,
I would say.
but that
so
shows.
You swerved that conversation, and did he deliver it as a look? You're getting on well in the business now. You need to make some decisions.
Yeah, and what that was. I mean, look. One of the things that we'll say is that for all of Steff's positives, sometimes he can put people against each other, which then is and look, we've not killed anybody, so I think it's to a certain degree worked okay at this point, but for you to ask me to do that to my grandmother, that was your way of not really wanting to confront or grasp the nettle.
Absolutely. Don't forget when she would come in the shop, right? Because she ended up in the end on a Zimmer frame, right?
Yeah.
But before that, she had a walking stick, and she got the name Grandma Stick because of the fact that one of the great grandchildren always called her Grandma Stick, and it stuck. The stick stuck. Yeah. And she'd come in, and when we were expanding the store down York Road, she could see the chaos of all these builders and the filth and how it was going to get stressful. But she'd gone then. She'd retired.
She'd come there with her finger and rub it across the thing and go, look at this, right?
Yeah, and keeping you on your toes even then.
And it was me. It wasn't Steff that she was looking at.
Because you'd had the conversation.
It was I felt bad about the fact that Wesley was often picked on by her, but it was almost like what I got from her side of the conversation was that who the hell does he think he is? I'm the one, right? It's typical, isn't it, of a mother, you know what I mean? Of that sort of personality. I'm the one that's worked the late nights. I'm the one that's done things for nothing. He comes in, this little jumped up star, and I remember the time that we were doing the inside of the shop, and she came over with a walking stick and did that, prodded him in the chest. Don't you make my son's life difficult. Right, and I thought, God, she's really gonna
that's my
lay into him there.
That's my grandma, Aaron. So there you go.
So we've had some.
So by the way, let me reaffirm. Don't work with family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you have changed any of that? Would you have made different decisions, do you think, on that sort of stuff relating to family and business if you could go back in time?
I think I would think that I would, right? But I don't think I would, if you know what I'm saying by that.
Yeah.
Because I look at how many people get to work with their children who become adults, right, and middle-aged men and women, right? That, in my opinion, is something that's quite rare.
Yeah.
There's not that, apart from maybe if you look at somewhere like corner shops where it's an Indian family running it, and there's the daughter there and the brother and the uncle, and
especially for that long as well. You think how long everybody's worked together in your family. It's not just 5-6 years. It's
I mean,
long time.
it's virtually. I'm not joking now. It's virtually the whole of my family. I still do it to this day.
And by the way, everybody comes back. The uncle that you mentioned, we had a falling out. He left, and then he came back. So it's one of those things, and actually that's one of the things that I really admire about the business, is that really, as a family and actually as human beings, I think we're really forgiving, and that's been our biggest trait. And actually, maybe that's the answer to your question of how you lot all work together, because we forgive each other. Because even though we have a big fallout, at the end of the day, we just learn to forget about it. Maybe we've got short-term memory loss.
Learn to move on and look at the bigger picture, maybe.
And we don't bear grudges. No. And I think that helps us. As I said, of the amount of people that have come second time around through Steffans,
Oh, you
wouldn't
had
believe.
loads come back.
Team members.
You know,
Well, I came to see you last week, and there was a chap that worked with you guys for a long time, and he just popped in for a chat, and I think that says a lot. How many people after a few years would go back to their existing supplier and their existing employer and think, I want to go and have a chat with him? Most people hate their employers or it ends badly and stuff. So I think that says a lot about the relationships, not just with customers and suppliers, but also people that have worked for you and with you. That people will feel comfortable to come in and have those just a chat over a coffee for half an hour.
We almost don't focus on selling jewellery. We focus on the experience, right, of coming into a Steffans store, right? We focus on that, you know. We will instantly say, would you like a cup of coffee? Would you like a cup of tea? Would you like a drinking chocolate? Would you like a glass of champagne? Would you like a glass of wine?
Can I clean your jewellery for free?
Water. All these things are us giving something back and not just looking at, we've got to make a sale, although we have got to make a sale. I mean, if we don't make the sales, I mean, talking about that, one of the stories that you ought to include more than probably anything that I can remember in my life is if it snows on Christmas Day,
you get your money back.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
This was going back about 20 years ago.
Yeah, that was like a John Lennon Imagine moment in my life. It just never got forgotten. It was always there. Right?
So let me explain to you the mechanics of it. So a customer would come in. So we advertised it, and this got national publicity. At the time, and very clearly it just said if it snows on Christmas Day at X amount of time, at 12 o'clock afternoon on Greenwich Observatory. And it could only be one snowflake. But if one snowflake fell, and they confirmed that snowflake had fallen, that we would give the customers their money back. So on the receipt,
all the customers,
all the customers,
not just one,
no,
all of them.
So
over what period?
Over the Christmas period,
December, the month of December.
So let's just say it's £1 million.
Right,
it's £1 million worth of turnover on that particular period. Steff had managed to get insurance on a cover for if it did snow, that we would and you know you go out.
How did you manage to get that?
You go out to fund everybody. There's an insurance for everything.
The guy who actually took it on, who was in London, right, and he rang me up on this occasion. He said, "Steff, why is it that I'm thinking about Steffans when I'm in London outside Selfridges and it's bloody snowing, right?" And I said, "It's snowing." He went, "It looks like it's going to snow." Yeah, and it's just ruining my Christmas, right? This thing went on, right? So when we got to the point where we're getting close to Christmas Eve, I thought we'll take out something like £800,000 worth of insurance, so we could give them that back, that £800,000 back. And that at the time, I think, cost me about 12 grand. Okay. On the Christmas.
Well, hang on. If I can just say, then we went on. Then we were away on holiday. Right?
No, but I haven't told them the other bit yet, though. If I can.
Go on.
Right. The other bit is that we got to the weekend, and I asked the girl in the office. So we've got an office upstairs, the clerical side, where we were on how much money we'd taken. Right. Which I'd expect her to give me reports, looking back on it now, every day. So I knew where I was. I wasn't flying blind, right? And she's going away for the weekend, which is the Saturday and the Sunday, or the Friday, the Saturday and the Sunday. I thought, well, she'll be gone, so I've now got to find out, because it was so busy, it was untrue. And I said, "Oh, by the way, Deb, where are we on the numbers?" And she said, "Well, I haven't done them for the last week." So I said, "Well, can you do them before you leave? You know, because she's then going to go away for Christmas."
Yeah, and you're not going to have a clue.
I'm not going to have a clue.
Success or not.
So she came down and she went, we're about £250,000 short.
Oh, so £250,000 over the insured amount.
Oh, okay.
Which then meant that meant if it snowed on Christmas, we'd have to find £250,000.
Yeah. It became a real
or give the customers
journey.
back £250,000. And I remember, and again, this is this family dynamic. I remember being in Florida. That after Christmas, Dad always used to take us away because that was our treat.
I think it was Miami.
It was in Florida. It was Florida, Miami, Florida. Anyway, so we goes away for Christmas, and I remember Debbie who's just referring to, calling Dad.
And she
on
still
Christmas
works
Day.
for us now.
Yeah,
and she's been working for 30 odd years.
She's getting her reports in on
40
time
years.
nowadays.
Yeah, we don't still. But the point was, I remember a call in, and I remember Steff being outside, and I remember Dad's face, the pressure on Dad's face, and then they rang him and said, "Look, it hasn't snowed. You're okay."
In those days,
Dad went from like ultra hyper sensitive to unrelaxed.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And how a business, and of course, every businessman up and down the land has those pressures, right? But how a business can generate those pressures, unless you've been in that kitchen, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. And I don't know whether there's ever. I mean, look, it's all your own doing, right?
Yeah.
But it's the way that you progress in business. Is by understanding how to take those pressures.
But without putting that on, you might not have generated those sales.
No,
We've
we've never matched it, to be honest with you. We've never matched it. We did it.
But what a great problem to have. But then to get the reports at £250,000, it's going to make a serious dent if you're not insured on that portion of the money.
The insurance guy, I remember him saying to me, "How are you going to administer the money? You're writing a cheque out." So I said, "Well, yeah, I'll have a table,
line them up
I'll
outside.
sit at the table, and they'll all be queuing up to get the money back." He went, "I wish I'd never done this." Yeah, seriously. And when I did do it the second time, right, they have Lloyd syndicates, and those syndicates sit round the table and say, "That sounds like one worth taking on. We'll earn some money out of that. He's going to give us 12 grand. It won't snow, right? Let's take that 12 grand."
Yeah.
You see. Well, when it came to doing it, because I've got to do it again to match the figures from the year before, they moved all the goalposts, and it was much more disciplined than it was then, because they did it.
So they took a bit of a punt the first time.
The first time it was Wild West.
Yeah.
It was the Wild West.
The Wild West.
Yeah.
Possibly. Would you say that was the biggest kind of risk you've taken in the business, or?
I'd say it was probably employing me.
No, the biggest risk that I've taken probably.
There was one of them. I'd say.
I think it probably was thinking about it. I wouldn't do it again. Because, I mean, but then again, in those days it snowed. It used to snow on Christmas Day. Not every one, but a little few flakes used to come down.
That's all it needed.
I mean,
that's all it needed. One flake.
So what would have that done to the business practically?
It would have crippled it. I'm not sure. It sent it under, but it would have.
I think it
crippled
would have done. It would have sent it under in those days. I mean, the thing is that the insurance guy said to me, it depends whether everybody comes back for their money.
I was going to say, that's the only thing you can kind of hope for, is that maybe only 20% of people clock on that it snowed.
Or that people take pity on you and go, we don't.
But what a great, from a business perspective, what a great idea. One, because it's unique and generated the revenue. Two, because it's, as much as there's a risk, there was a risk that was covered with insurance. And two, actually, that additional 250 at the time would have felt really stressful because there's a lot of money. But practically, how much of that 250 is going to come back and ask for it? So actually, when you look at the risk, it's a pretty good decision.
Yeah, it's a gamble. It's a gamble. And actually, one thing I'll say is that every year we've continued to do something quite extraordinary over the Christmas period.
So we've done 48 of them virtually, in round figures, say 45. 45 of those Christmas events. I mean, I've done them, as I've mentioned, Valentine card, where a bloke's come in the shop and says, "Hey mate, why are you sending this card to my wife?" I said, "But I've sent out 4,000 of them." What? I've sent 4,000 out. It's just a publicity.
So you've had that. You've had people come in.
Oh yeah, it's a publicity stunt. I'm not. Well, why are you sending it to my wife then? So I said, "No, I've sent it to loads of women. Why?" But it was all about. Steffans sent me a Valentine. It was that sort of thing, really. I couldn't do it now.
But it all just backs up the whole different approach to
a
unique way of working.
It's actually becoming, it's doing something that people find fascinating, and I think that's always how we've approached business. It's that it's not doing what everybody else does. It's doing something.
Because I've gone into jewellery shops and felt very awkward.
Yes.
Very awkward because I feel, should I be in here or not?
Yeah.
Or
they think I'm going to nick something.
Or I'm being looked at in a certain way, or you feel pressured, and people are coming up to you all the time. And actually coming into your environment, it's completely different. You feel like you're walking into a home because of the way it makes you feel. It's nice and it's flush, but it's also comfortable.
We have that said many times.
We do.
Yeah, I think that if I hadn't have done what I've done in the jewellery business, I would have been linked somewhere with interior, film sets,
Yeah.
stage settings, anything that enabled you to get this. God, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
You do get that sense when you walk in.
But it's not just the interior, it's not just the fixtures and fittings. It's actually the fact that somebody greets you with a smile.
Yeah.
It's the fact that somebody welcomes you with a cup of coffee. It's the fact that somebody offers you to clean your jewellery for free. All those things are put in place to make people feel at ease.
All part of the environment.
Yeah,
and
and
experience.
also, you know, I'm not about. You come into the shop, I'm not about selling you a piece of jewellery. I'm about giving you the experience, and then as a byproduct of that, if you enjoy the experience, then I'm hoping that you will decide to spend money with me when you decide to spend money.
Yeah.
And I think that's always been the mantra. And you know, Steff mentioned it before, but you know, for me, that's what Steffans Retail has always been about. And you know, we've got a locked door. We have to have a locked door, but I'm very keen to make sure that people don't see that locked door. They don't feel that locked door. So when they come in the shop, it feels like there's not a barrier.
Yeah.
And that's you know that's the skill of Steffans. I think really is that we make it feel less like a jeweller's.
Has it always had that, or is that something that's kind of come with time?
No, it's always had that. It's always had that. That was started by Dad many years ago.
The other thing I think, if there's any budding entrepreneurs out there, right, that are thinking, you know, your generation, I wish I could do something as a businessman. They've got to sort of realise that it's not a make money quickly and suddenly all that money that comes into the door is there to spend on whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? That's the biggest, in my opinion, if you're giving advice, that's the biggest downfall of people that think, well, now I've done this, and you go to your accountant, your accountant says, well, you've taken so much money this year, let's just say you've taken £1 million from round figures, right? So you're sitting there thinking, well, I'll buy a Range Rover then, you know, right? And then he'll come to the bit, but I've got to do this and I've got to do that, which means in order to reduce your tax burden, I've got to bring that profit down, which means you haven't got that money to buy that car, right? So I soon learned that it didn't have the reward, almost like the peanut
Short-term,
for the monkey.
short-term view, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a long-term thing. But more than that, because of being a jeweller, you have to invest a massive amount of money in your stock.
A quick word from one of our sponsors, Guru Technology. Simply put, they're the highest Google-rated company in their industry. A very different service and a very different set of products covering business-to-business mobiles, phone systems, energy, renewables and EV, security, CCTV, alarms, AMPR, broadband and IT. They specialise in dealing with companies who are receiving really poor service and spending a lot of money currently with their supplier. They will come to site, do a free of charge audit and fix any problems that you're having. So if you've got problems with your current supply chain, search Guru Technology in Google and give them a buzz. Thank you. Let's get back to the podcast.
Right.
It's a gamble, I suppose,
It's a
isn't it? 'Cause
yeah,
what if the stock doesn't come off?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Steff's always, one of the things I will say is, one of the things I've learnt from Dad is that he's always mentioned about making sure that you're reinvesting in the business, whether it be reinvested in the fixtures, fittings, the technology, the stock, you know, it's putting it back in, because one day the fruits will be that much sweeter than if you pick it before it's ripe.
Yeah. So how do you talk? You mentioned before, about 20 minutes ago, about the pressures of getting involved in a family business, number one, but also something that's got a clear heritage, history, already got really solid foundations from Steff.
Yeah.
What's the pressure like for you as a businessman in that business now and a son?
I think it's pretty great, really. It's pretty great pressure. You know, I've never wanted. Steff is a peacock. Okay, he dresses like a peacock. He acts like a peacock. Steffans is his stage, and I've always recognised that there can't be two peacocks on the stage at the same time. So, I think if Steff wasn't around, I probably would be a much more extrovert creature, and I probably would be a lot more colourful with the way that I dress. I've had to be more conservative because of the fact that he's the main course, and you know, as time's gone on, you know, and as Steff has stepped back, maybe I've become a little bit closer to that point. But we are different people, and you know, and I look at things slightly differently to Dad, but I think we often look at things in a very, very similar way, and I think we're very, very closely allied with the way that we look at the world and we look at life. But it's it's tough because, of course, if I fail, then everybody will say, well, you didn't do as well as your dad. So it's that pressure. Although people see the initial, oh well, you came into a business that was already established many years ago. It comes with a hell of amount of pressure to succeed, and you know.
I think it's hard work, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's. I always think when you watch somebody like Paul McCartney, why does he keep going out and doing concerts? It's not for the money, because he's a billionaire. So why does he do it? He enjoys it. He enjoys what he does. It comes across like that. They not only get when somebody goes to see him, it's a man who's 81 now, right? Who's not such a good singer, and he has a job to reach a lot of the notes, but they still come. They still want to speak to that guy and have that moment, and that moment to those people that they remember for life. I'm not comparing myself to Paul McCartney, by the way, let me just say that. I'm just saying how that is very much a part of the experience of whatever it is you're doing. You know, if I'm going to see, for example, a concert, right, then I don't get too excited about it beforehand, because if you do, you think it's going to be better than it is.
Yeah.
It's a live concert, things can go wrong, and etc. Same with running a business, really. That I say again to Wesley, look, we are like, if you like, we're like the Rolling Stones. We've got lots of back issues that we can bring out. Well, we've got 40 odd years of different things we've done. Those people won't remember what we did 40 years ago because we did a Thomas the Tank Engine one, right? But Thomas the Tank Engine really is not appropriate now. We've done so many of them. Could go on and on. I've had Scotch evening, Scotch on the rocks, which would Scotch with diamonds in the ice, so that when they melted, all those things, crazy things that we've done. We've done keys where somebody had the key to the cabinet which had got the item in it that was like a couple of grand, and they win that.
Willy Wonka
Chocolate Factory and all that. There's so many of those things to do. So we like the Rolling Stones or the Beatles, who've got a back catalogue over the years. So we're never going to run out of ideas. They're there. They would just change them slightly. And also bear in mind, a lot of the people will not probably live long enough. If you think they went there when they were 40 and that was 40 years ago, they're 80 now. So you can start regurgitating stuff, and that's what really they've done just with the Beatles song just recently, haven't they? Now and then they've taken with the technology, they've redone it, and they've made
same with a couple of Elton John songs recently. They've revamped them a bit, and
I think our industry is very theatrical, actually. And I think that's why I ended up perhaps dressing up like a peacock, as he says. I don't ever refer to myself as a peacock, but Wesley's obviously got his opinion. The thing is that it's very much a theatrical thing, right? My father, his grandfather, died when he was 94, but he was on the stage and he used to go around the country, right? He was on the new theatre in Northampton, and he'd sing and tap dance, and he was a good looking guy, right? But he just didn't. Then the war came, and he had to go to war, and he never got back into being this person. He then went round the pub singing, which is what is more normal. And so, the stock that I come from is traffic warden. He was, bless him. That in itself, he made that job fun. He enjoyed what he did, because he used to not give the tickets to the good-looking women. I mean, if they were good looking, he would chat them up. He would hold the bus up on the zebra crossing to allow a good looking girl to come across the crossing.
He had a saying: "You die if you worry, you die if you don't. So why worry?"
Why bloody worry?
Well, I didn't want to say it on.
That's all right.
I didn't want to.
You die if you worry.
I didn't want to swear on Aaron's podcast.
No. So. Why bloody worry at all? And that's how he was. And he was very proud of what had been achieved, and he wanted to be part of that family. Every year he used to come up to me, this is in the earlier days, and he'd say, Steff, can I be a security man? Because I'm a bit worried about down there, that door. People come in there and you never know who they are these days. And I said, well, Dad, I'll tell you what, do it on Christmas Eve. It was almost like me trying to be kind again, right, and saying, okay, Dad, we don't really need you, right, because you're 80 odd, right, but
come and do it
on the door, right? he came into work in his traffic warden uniform. So we took his yellow band off his head there, and now he got a black hat with the black shiny brim there, and he got all his buttons there and his epaulets, and he looked the part.
Yeah.
Very highly polished boots. And as they come in, he'd open the door for them and he'd shake their hand and he'd say, "I'm Steff's father." Now, that was probably an outstanding moment for him in his life, that he could be part of that family team. Back to that thing. I mean, I'd forgotten about that. But
that small detail there, it's one of many over the 48 years of that's part of the culture, that's part of the history.
Yeah.
And you feel a little bit of that when you walk in.
Yeah.
It captures it really well. Even though I didn't know about that particular element, you can kind of feel it.
Yeah.
When you got there's I feel like there's a motive connection through what the store makes you feel like in terms of the experience.
Yeah.
Versus the history. It's a blend of evolving history over a period of time that fits for the current, but also doesn't forget the past.
Well, I think the other thing to point out is that our business has evolved, and you mentioned the word evolution there, but if you look at the way that our business has evolved, Steff originally started selling second-hand pieces, and that was a big part of the business. And then it developed into selling bespoke pieces, one-offs, and then Ellie came into the business, and as Steff alluded, the 501 of selling multiple products, and they were the Pandora days, Thomas Sabo, Links of London, where we sold 2,000 sweetie bracelets one Christmas. And
wow.
2,000 sweetie bracelets is just extraordinary for a business like ours.
I think I bought one of them.
Yeah, little jump.
I was on the list.
Yeah. No kid, what would happen is a guy like you would come in and he'd go, I'd say, "Hi, my name's Steff.
Yeah.
You'd like to look at a sweetie bracelet?" And you go,
Yeah,
"How do you know that?"
yeah,
I'm not joking, right?
Because sometimes you don't really know what you're looking for. You
No,
come in
but-
and you need a steer.
But Steff was so confident that you were coming in for it.
Yeah, that's why I bought so many. I could see it coming.
Yeah.
That we were sending them for about 75 quid, weren't we?
Yeah.
And then I think Wesley come up with the idea of making a necklace out of them, which they didn't do. And then, of course, they started to produce that.
Yeah.
So we've given a lot of good ideas away to the trade.
Monica Vinegar, I remember sitting across from Harrods developing his bracelet with Monica Vinegar when we stopped Monica Vinegar. So, we build relationships actually with all of our suppliers. We have this extraordinary relationship where we are not just selling their wares, but we're also giving them ideas, and we're actually helping them develop themselves, whether it be Sean Lean when we did the hooks as a bracelet, whether it be Theo Fennell where we did the King Rich III thing. We've done so many things, and to connect us with Northampton, we've done stuff like we did. You've had Mark and Guy on. We did a watch collaboration with Mark and Guy. We did a Geoffrey West U-boat, and that was one of 30 pieces, and it had the Geoffrey West strap on it, and it came with a pair of matching shoes.
They're not really money-making exercises.
Never are.
They are, which is unfortunate, but they really are PR exercises, right? Where we say we're friends with this person, right? And this is how we sort of support them, and it's that sort of
bit of ego and a bit of halo.
Yeah,
but halo that it hopefully comes good from other parts of that collaboration.
Yeah.
I mean, Guy has got, I think, not the same type of personality. He likes to shock, so there's a bit of that there. And I used to always wear his boots every single day of my life for about 15 years. Until I got flat-footed, and then I can't wear them now. But
your chiropractor has banned you.
Yeah, Cuban heels and pointed toes. But yeah, I've got great respect for them. I mean, I love the way they do the whole thing. The building looks brilliant. So anything in Northampton that is 5-star should stand out, because there aren't hardly any 5-star.
And I think it does. Like from driving past, it's lit. The store's lit really well. It's different. It's clean. It's precise, but it's welcoming.
Yeah.
Similar with Geoffrey West, got its own. It's
a proud man, you see. That's what it is. And the two of them are both proud. And I think a lot of that being proud about things is why you maintain a standard. Same with a good chef, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. Have you interviewed a chef? Because a chef really, again, is an artist, aren't they? You take them there, and part of the thing is they set fire to it in front of you at the table, isn't it?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's that experience. So you don't.
It's the theatre of
food. You remember the fact that this happened.
Well, the feeling it made gave you.
Yeah.
And I remember going, and this has got to be 50 odd years ago, with my first wife, to a place out Bedford way, which provided really good food. And as soon as we walked in, the guy came over with like a French or Italian accent, and he said, your number table, Mr. Suda? So I said, oh yes, thank you. Now, we went back there for years, because whenever I got there, he remembered my name.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm saying about the most important thing to most people is
the simple stuff,
name.
isn't it?
Yeah. And he, the theatre that goes with it is so important. I mean, but another thing we did was we tried to find, we called it the What's On Awards, right, where we picked out of the town the best nurse, the best school teacher, the best fireman, the best policeman, etc., right? And we set up a panel so that we could interview them and find out all these things. Yeah.
This was a collaboration with a local magazine at the time.
Yeah. This was a collaboration. Yeah, and we've got who was the guy that was on?
Bobby Davro.
Bobby Davro.
Yeah. Bobby Davro.
Right. We didn't come for nothing.
Yeah.
We had to pay Bobby Davro. I think that cost us about $4,000. So we go there to the event.
It was at the Dern Gate.
Yeah, the Dern Gate.
Yeah.
The clock's ticking away, right, and it's now 4:00 in the afternoon. The show starts at 8, so we've got 4 hours. And Bobby Davro walks in. He said, "Has anybody got any fucking idea what's going on round here?" Right, and I thought, we're sitting there thinking, that's me. Well, I should have an idea. I've got to go and speak to him. So went up and spoke with him, but it was almost chaotic because we weren't that.
Yeah.
We weren't that good at setting up a stage show.
But it wasn't. Yeah, but it wasn't your forte, was it? It wasn't your forte.
Yeah, but again, that What's On Award, the big thing that come out of it, the people that bought the tickets, right, were the people whose dad, auntie,
had been nominated,
friends and family had been nominated. Yeah,
and we filled the place up, which was quite a difficult thing to do. I can't remember if it was 1,000 or 2,000 in there, but to actually get all those people to pay their money over. That was the most stressful thing I think I've ever done. Thinking about that's it more so than the snow thing, if it snows.
But what a great concept, though. It's something completely unique, something completely different. It kind of it puts Steffans on stage.
Yeah.
You're gifting stuff to people that have done a great job in their community. So it's got a community feel. You've got a load of people there that, whether they buy anything from you guys or not, in a couple of weeks after that, will certainly, when they do want to buy something, think, I'm going to go there first, because of that and how they made people, how you made them feel, and the event and all that sort of stuff. It ties everything in, everything into what you guys are about, which is unique, different.
We can't influence the buying habits of somebody that whether they are going to buy jewellery or not going to buy jewellery. But what we can be in the forefront of their mind when they do decide to make that purchase.
Are they thinking of Steffans when they want to make a purchase?
Yeah. And that's the key. I mean, going back to the good stuff that we've done. I mean, you had my cousin Kim, who is, by the way, out and out one of the most extraordinary characters that I know.
He's interviewed her.
Of course, yes. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
And we've helped Kim with Born to Perform. I've been over to the Born to Perform and helped them with bracelet making workshops and loads of different things over the years. We raised over £10,000 for the Jessie Fund, which was somebody that worked for me, Zoe, whose son sadly contracted leukemia. We've helped Cynthia Spencer. The amount of money that we've raised over the years for charities, and actually one of the things I'll say is we don't make a big song and dance about it. The fact that I'm saying this now, but I feel like there's a time and a place for it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, a lot of those things don't get said. I mean, we raised £5,000 for the Frank Bruno Foundation for helping young children to enter into the boxing academy that was set up in Northampton.
Yeah.
So what we love to do is we love to take those opportunities, input our ideas. One of the things we did with Frank Bruno was Frank worked with us very closely, and we produced a pair of boxing gloves, and it had, on one boxing glove it had the sun, and on the other it had the cloud, and that was Frank's logo because of the good and the bad days. And we sold those, and all the proceeds, so we didn't make a penny out of them, but all the proceeds went to the charity, and every time we sold one of those, it funded a place for somebody to do that.
Amazing.
And whether it be the key rings with Jessie, where we've done that and we raised money for that, and all the funds went to that. We've done so many things over the years that if we can connect it with jewellery and we can help a charity or a fund or somebody that's just in need, then that's something we're always good.
Why is that important to you two as people, and also important to the business, that charity?
Yeah, to me, it's back to wanting to help people, right? I think that's how I would sort of say, right from my early days when I started talking to you about an hour ago, that it was the school and raising money for the minibus that made me realise that I became suddenly very popular, especially with the teachers, right? Because I'd done something for the school in my own time, if you like, right? Entrepreneurial. And that I think was the beginning of feeling that way, and also that my parents split up when I was 5. I became dad, really. I became dad of the family because I took responsibility, right? So my mother's living without really any support in those days, and all the things that needed doing, I was doing that what a dad would do. So I think that also had a bearing on it, and I'd like to be remembered as being a guy who's not just in it for the money. And I'm not in it for the money. I don't drive around in an expensive car or anything like that. I don't live in a great big house. I do it because if there's anything there that I like is the ego side of actually having people appreciating what you're doing.
Yeah, feeling good about helping people.
Feeling good.
Yeah,
giving you a purpose.
Much more important than money. Much more important. Money is unfortunately necessary, whatever you do. If you've got to borrow money, you've got to beg sometimes to get that money. I remember Guy saying the same sort of thing when he was here. You know, you'd go in there thinking, well, it's changed in the time that I've been in business. When I started out, this is gospel truth, I'd go to the bank manager, he would prepare a pot of tea and china cups, and I would sit with him, and round the walls were all these lovely watercolours, originals, right? The bank manager was like the headmaster. He was Captain Manwaring, right? And he made you feel really good. And he'd say, so, you've had a very good year, and how can we help you? He'd be about probably 80, he felt like he was then. How can we help you going forward? And I said, well, you know, would you better to increase our facility by, say, 50,000? I don't see that as a problem. Well done. Thank you very much. And it was that sort of thing. Now, my bank manager's right up north, about, he's in, well, further up than Bolton, say, right? And I'll say to him, am I ever going to meet you?
No, we've never met him.
Right? It's just the way of the world these days sometimes, isn't it?
I know, but wouldn't it be nice
of course,
you knew...
But then that goes back to why we're extraordinary.
Exactly.
The personal
not everybody's built in that way, are they?
No. No, and also, most businesses can't sustain that level of service. You know, they just can't.
It's a lot of effort to sustain that element of personal touch on volume. It's exhausting.
It's the energy. It's the energy you had to exhume to
That's
deliver.
That's what we have in common, right? That's what we've got in common. I think is that Wesley and I are more alike than we want to be, really, right? And I know, like I said earlier, what he goes through when somebody comes in and says, you know, I've bought this, they don't like it, you know, that type of customer who's not happy with what you've done everything you can, but they're not even treating you properly as you'd like them to. Right? I can see that with Wesley. You know, and I will do my best to talk it through. And the only thing you can say really is I know you're feeling, because that used to happen to me and still does. It still happens, but you've got to somehow say to yourself, I'm going to keep the safety catch on. I'm not going to blow their head off by, you know, retaliating to what they're saying.
So I mean, I think you have to acknowledge so much energy that goes into making things as good as you possibly can.
It's not nice to hear the negative.
Look, sometimes it becomes personal, right? And it's really difficult to prevent that from becoming to taking it personally. But I mean, look, touch wood. That doesn't really become too much of an issue with us because of the fact that we deliver that service.
But all I'm trying to say though, Wesley, is that, you know, that anybody who's thinking, oh well, I'd like to do something in a business sense, it's not just about selling a product.
No,
it's actually about communicating. You know what I mean? It's about a lot more things than that, and being tolerant. The one thing I try to teach them all is, what can I do to make it right? Now, that's like dead easy to deal with then, isn't it? Because what they'll probably say is, well, you could do it for me, the engraving, for nothing, let's just say. But the person on the other side of the counter is thinking he wants a new item. He doesn't just want to have it reduced by the cost of the engraving.
Yeah.
It's communicating. So that person's not looking for a refund. That person's not. They just want to get it sorted out, really. And they love it when you say, you know, what can I do to make it right? They sort of, what do you mean make it right? I said, well, anything. What would make you happy? And that's probably
again, I have to thank Dad for that with the Love Service, Love Steffans, because that bar
It's set very, very high. Yeah.
consistently.
So I've got some questions from people. So last week I went out on social media, mentioned that you guys are coming in, and we've had some people reach out. I've got some questions. So, and grateful for some of the responses that you had, because it ties in nicely with this. So we've got David off of LinkedIn.
Yep.
Has basically asked, how do you tie in emotion and feeling to your products?
Well,
we'll let Wesley.
we sell love, and we sell pain. Love when you buy a piece of jewellery for a loved one, and pain when you have to potentially bring it back when somebody passes away, because jewellery still retains a value. So, you know, it's a really tough one. But I think 9 times out of 10, our team, and I refer to our team quite often in this regard, is that we live in this beautiful world where everybody that comes into Steffans is in love with somebody. And that love that you have, I mean, don't get me wrong, we also deal with divorces, and we deal with them bringing back engagement rings and stuff like that. So it's not just about that.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, somebody's visiting Steffans and they're buying a piece of jewellery because they're in love with somebody. And that's a really lovely thing. And that creates somebody that is, a pleasure 9 times out of 10 to deal with.
Yeah.
But you do have the other side, which is somebody in tears because their husband's left them, or in tears because their mother's died, and they've got all this jewellery and they don't know what to do with it. And, you know, our job is to solve that problem for them. And, you know, I think it naturally ties in emotion and the product that we sell. I think
What a beautiful thing to be able to do for people.
Yeah. I'll tell you, my wife's father was cremated yesterday, and if you look at it, we're very much about life and death as a business, right? Probably more so than any other business other than an undertaker. And we provide a memory, right, which is something good, right? And there's not many things you can do that with.
Yeah.
A pair of shoes you can't do with, you can't do with clothing, you can't do with a pair of sunglasses. It's jewellery, right? Like Wesley, for example, bought me that for my 70th. That's John Lennon, and it's a one-off piece, right? Now, I took all my rings off to wear that ring because that meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
That he'd been thoughtful enough and ahead of it to realise that would be special for me.
Yeah.
And that's what people do. They get a lot of they put themselves in your hands almost.
Yeah.
I
put themselves under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and I think, again, going back to the consistent person that lives in Northampton, there are not that many, that not consistent. Constant in people's lives, is a vicar, okay? But if you look at it, we deal with birth, which is often the christening element side.
Yeah.
So they'll buy a christening bangle for the first baby.
Yeah.
Before that, they'll buy, because there's a baby being born, the man will probably come in and buy a ruby ring.
What they call a push present.
If it's a girl, right, and a blue sapphire if it's a boy. Thinking, of course, they're being totally original, but that is something lots of people do.
Yeah.
You know, hope it never stops. But then moves on to their, I would say the next one is going to be probably 18th, right? So when I started out, you only celebrated your 21st, but now they celebrate your 18th and your 21st. And then, of course, there's somewhere in between there where they all go to a college do, dressed up in ball gowns.
Yeah.
What's that one called?
You're talking about like a prom.
America.
Prom. Yeah.
Then there's a prom now. We're going to have earrings to go with the necklace. And these little occasions that come along, right, are celebrations. So we sell that as love, which it is really. It's love for somebody.
I mean, the one story I've got to tell you, we've got a customer who's been a customer for many, many years, and I served him and his wife for over 10 years, and his wife sadly died. And this chap was into jewellery in a big way, and he really loved the feeling that jewellery gave him when he bought it, for his wife and for himself. And he commissioned for me to make a cross for him, And we chose a jeweller in London who is one of the workshops that we deal with, Theo Fennell. And Theo we commissioned and helped develop and design a one-off cross that actually accepted a vial of his wife's ashes inside the cross, so inside the body of the cross. And this piece was, I think, about £15,000 at the time. And I had the burden and responsibility of taking his wife's ashes on a train by hand up to this workshop, taking a video because I was that astute. No other person would do this. Yeah. No other business would do this.
You want to give him the confidence that...
But I wanted to give him the confidence that she is going up into this vial of this cross that that we're going to present to him, and that they don't lose any of the ashes and all that, and all of that due diligence that you have to do to really make sure that. And again, it was personal. I knew this woman. This is something that's creating a great emotion in me, because I remember saw this woman alive, and now she's here in a glass vial going into a cross. But the amount of solace and the amount of gratitude that we got back from that customer was immense. It was just immense. It was like nothing else. I mean, he cried on many occasions, and when we refer to it, there's many times that we often shed a tear together. And in return for that, Cynthia Spencer helped him, and we developed a bracelet for Cynthia Spencer. So that personal thing is just, it's ingrained in the DNA. It's
ingrained in the business, and you guys especially.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Another question from Dan, who's part of actually the podcast, because we've got a podcast Facebook networking group just for business owners in Northampton that specifically sort of focuses on the podcast. And Dan in that group has said something Northampton related, which is, why is it important to be a proud business owner from Northampton? It's some things you spoke about today, you spoke about when I met you previously, you've spoken about online, about being a proud people of Northamptonshire. Why is that important?
Well, what's the alternative? To not be proud?
Plenty of people are not.
Yeah, but you have to be proud of what you've got, because otherwise it falls into disrepair. Yeah. I mean, look, I work very closely. I was a director of the BID, and I work very closely with the town centre, and I'm constantly trying to push it in the right direction. Don't get me wrong. There's times where I feel that I'm fighting a losing battle, but at the end of the day, we have to continue loving what we have, because if we don't love it, just as if you have a plant and you don't water it, it dies. And that's just the cold hard facts of life. And for us, we're proud to be Northamptonians because of the rich history that we've got, whether it be the castle, whether it be we produced a coin that Northampton had a mint back in, Steff?
Well, about 1200.
And it minted a coin, and we replicated that coin and sold it as a piece of jewellery. There's some rich history here. Right?
Oh, massive history, massive. I mean, it's really, really interesting as well. I can only say, as you get older, you're more interested in knowing about history than you probably appreciate you would be.
Yeah.
And to see some of these places that, for example, I was christened in a church called the Holy Sepulchre. Right now, the Holy Sepulchre was actually a round church, one of about three. One of them was in Bethlehem, I think, but it's all to do with the Crusades, right? And at the time, I didn't know that was such an important church, because I was just a baby, basically. Yeah. And as time goes on, you realise that Northampton, we are very good at really kicking ourselves and knocking ourselves down, right? But I really hope that this, because of things like COVID, etc., and because we get changes of governments, etc., that people see the town centre developing into the next stage. I think, the rest of Northamptonshire, apart from potholes, which don't get me on the subject of potholes, but apart from potholes, Northampton around the town is a lovely place to live. Right, I live in a village, it's got history, etc. The town centre along the way has been neglected, in my opinion, right? So you either say Northampton's a mess, which a lot of people do on things like Facebook, and they say that people will, urine urinate in the streets and things that they don't like, obviously, and that things are not, and rubbish is put out on the streets. You've got to do something about that while you're going through this transition.
Yeah.
Now, the Marks and Spencer's site, I was only reading last night that that's not going to be done. The flats, it's got to be totally rebuilt.
Residential.
Till about 2010. Right,
but it's all funding, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's all money.
Yeah, it's
all
money.
funding
Yeah,
related,
money,
but it's
yeah.
going to sit derelict for a period of time, and
it's not falling down.
But it will. But of course, the reality is that in real time we would want somebody to wave a magic wand over Northampton and make everything beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, even cities like Leicester, who I think Leicester is ahead of us in terms of a lot of things, have got empty units, have got empty shops. This is not a result of Northampton
problem. Yeah.
This is a internet. This is a use it or lose it. Whether it be your local DIY shop and you decide to choose to buy that product on Amazon as opposed to the DIY shop. If you don't use it, it's gone.
Yeah.
And the same really that our business isn't immune to those problems. And if we're not used, if people don't value what we bring to the table, there may come a point where we're not relevant anymore. So I think when you're choosing to click on Amazon or you're choosing to click on the internet or whatever it might be, and don't get me wrong, we have a website, so we're as guilty as the next one. But I think people fail to accept or fail to acknowledge that there's a lot of things that the people, their habits, that are creating these problems amongst our high street, and it's something that I don't think in the short term that there will be a solution to. I think we are going through the reversal of urban sprawl. I think more residential is going to come into Northampton. I talk a lot about the conflict between commercial and residential because it seems that people freely put mattresses outside their front doors, and as a business owner, I don't really like to see that. So we're about to come into a very, very interesting time, I think, in the evolution of town centres and retail and residential, where there'll be this conflict between what somebody does as an individual and what a business wants as part of their best practice, and that Northampton is gonna have a problem with. I was only in a meeting about the water in Northampton. Northampton is designed to take X amount of water out and X amount of water in. When that town becomes more residential, we're going to have to change all the infrastructure, right? These are all things that have to take place, and it's not the glamorous side of the work, but it's the work that still needs to be done. So there's a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
I think a good strap line would be Northampton wasn't built in a day, right? Because it can't do that. We would all like it to be built in a day, and be sorted. You can't. It's going to take. Look how long has it taken?
It's a constant
evolution.
It's got more difficult with maybe the 60s was its height when the market was there and all the stores were taken down, and they'd got a barrow that they pushed them along and they stored them in a garage, and that's gone, far gone now. That's history. That's 50, 60 years ago. Now we're living in a time where the McManus's, for example, we mentioned them again, there were local lads, open up a little place in Northampton that probably don't even know exists, where it goes from the Drapery through to Drum Lane. Now I just so happened to start my first job at 15 was in that lane that's there, so I have a memory thing going on there, right? And they invited me along to their opening of it, and it was almost like going back in time. It's amazing, and yet it was better than it was before because now it was coordinated.
Well, the money that they invested in that place is again extraordinary.
Yeah,
right.
That pub was built in the 1600s. Do you know that pub?
Wow.
And it was heavily listed, as I understand it.
Yeah, I think it was a grade, even possibly a grade 1, definitely a grade 2, but I think a grade 1. But what I keep saying and trying to get across to people, if they're going to do the market square up, right, why don't they have something like a structure that's got Market Square, Northampton Market Square, as almost to guide people through, so that you've got all these different
quarters.
Businesses doing food and drink, then it leads to this new market square.
Because you've got that in places like Camden and places
That's
like
it.
Birmingham. You've got those.
Yeah,
But
that's a planning thing. I mean, we've spoken about that many times. Is that if you look at the street in Northampton from the Welling Road all the way down to the train station, it's the longest street in the country.
Crazy. Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
It's crazy. My grandfather, great grandfather, was a Hackney cab driver outside of what was Adnitz, right? So he'd sit there during the day. He was a suitor, okay, and he would go down to the station, right, with the people that had been shopping. And then when he'd pick up again at Castle Station and bring them back up, that's all he did all day, going backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
Look how much we've changed since then. Then we brought the tram in, right? But now, really, that some of those things need to be looked at and maybe revisited, because, as you said, it's a bloody long walk from the train station. If you go further down, because they're going to start next doing St James and the old bus station, tram station, you could be walking about 5 miles to get to the end.
Yeah, you'd be 25 minutes to get from one to the other pace.
It needs zoning.
It needs zoning. But it's just another very expensive job.
Logistical.
And of course, the problem is with most local politics is that you have a tender of 5 years, 4 years, whatever, and then once that 4 years is over, somebody else comes along. So the vision that you tried to create over those 4 years is then probably screwed up and put in the bin, but then somebody else is
not enough time to complete the work. Yeah,
and that's why Northampton potentially has struggled the way that it has. But look, we are huge advocates for the town. We put our best foot forwards, and that's all we can do. And we hope that other businesses follow and look at our example. And there are other businesses that we look at their example. Shipman's being a good example of that. And we look at it and we go, we've got to raise the bar constantly. And if we can do that, and I remember Steff always using the terminology of the Mayor Giuliani thing. If they break the windows, replace them, and eventually they won't break them.
Well, we replace them immediately.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about. Before somebody decides to break the other window, that's in the same pane of a window. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But Mayor Giuliani, of course, now is associated with things that probably.
Yeah. But the point was that his mantra back when New York was a pretty much a slum, was that we've got to try and consistently prevent those people who might be trying to put the city down, bringing it back up again and trying to make those improvements and not giving up. And I think that's all we can do with Northampton.
You need that, and you need as many people as possible to have the same opinion, and then things will naturally improve, won't they? Laura off of Instagram's mentioned it already about some of the bits you've in the past done for Christmas. Mm-hmm. What's the plans for Christmas for you guys this year? Is it anything you want to talk about in particular?
Penguins. Steph's dressed like a penguin today, wasn't Steph?
Yeah. it came from the fact that we give away every time somebody spends £75 or more, whether they come in the shop or whether they buy on the internet, we give them a penguin, which you can hang on your handbag, right? Or you can use as a key ring. Okay, we've been doing that now for about, I would say, 8 years.
There are icons. So we've done angel wings, we've done bumblebees, and we've become famed for a little bit like.
Well, people collect them, don't they? They buy them and don't use them. Mm-hmm. We haven't even got a collection of them. We've been stupid enough to give them all away. Yeah. But they're actually become collectible items. And the thing about the penguin is that they only have one partner, so they are for life. They are lovers and they are friends for the whole of their life. They don't go looking elsewhere, basically. And that's really what the theme of the thing was about.
Yeah.
And we designed the two penguins where when you put them both together they create a heart.
Yeah.
So you marry the two penguins together and they create a heart. Again, just one of those little touches.
Yeah.
It's those little attentions to detail.
Yeah.
That for us
it draws the emotion in, doesn't it?
Well, the important bit, and that's the story. When it's all right, it's all well and good saying there's a penguin and they mate for life, but actually, when you can actually say when you put them together they make a heart, all of a sudden the story becomes that much more colourful.
Yeah, and that's personal as well to that couple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know? I'll just tell you another quick, funny story. I'll just catch when you said about that. I had a customer come in looking at wedding rings, and I got chatting. I often will start to talk about something that's not to do with what they spend the money on.
Yeah.
So I can ask about them. So, do you live in Northampton? That sort of thing, right? And I said, so what do you do for a living? She said, oh, well, I work actually for Viagra. I went, Viagra. Now, don't forget, at the time, I was probably about 50-ish, I would think, yeah. And she's a very attractive lady, so if she does watch this, she knows I thought she was an attractive lady, just by, I carried on talking. Right. But when she said Viagra, and this was the early days when it hadn't been on the market.
Piqued your interest straight away.
Right. And she said, I'll tell you what, next time I come in, I'll bring you some. And I went, I don't need them, actually. Right, yeah, I don't need them. So she said, well, I'll bring you some in, right? And she said, thank you very much indeed for the service and all the rest. Off she goes, right? The following couple of Saturdays went by, and now it's the third Saturday, and she's come in the shop. And because I thought she was quite fanciful, and I looked at her and thought, you know, she's a nice-looking lady, I recognised her instantly.
Yeah.
And she's got a bag with bloody Viagra on it.
No, hang on now. I'll tell the true story. The van pulled up outside with a beep, 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 and it had Viagra on the side of it. And they came in a pallet.
No. So she brought this bag, right, with Viagra, and came over to me and gave it to me in front of everybody in the shop, right? And I can remember going so red, right? So I said, I'll put it down on the floor there, because I'm not opening it up in front of all the staff. Right? And inside there were these boxes. I don't know whether you've ever used Viagra, but they come in a cardboard box, right?
Yeah.
That's about the size of a matchbox, okay? Yeah. I thought they'd got the pills in those bubble packs, right? Yeah. But I still wasn't going to open them up in front of all the staff. So eventually, when it had quieted down and she'd gone, and I felt so embarrassed, as I've said, I opened it up, and inside there was a key ring. In fact, I'm not even sure that's not why I started doing the key ring for Christmas, right? This Viagra, who would use a key ring with Viagra on? You wouldn't, would you?
Yeah.
Right? But apparently they've become really collectible. They actually command, because there was only so many of them that obviously and stayed in service.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
well,
she had,
people swallowed them, you mean?
There wasn't any, there was no pills in there whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right? I thought, God, these must be worth a fortune. They were all key rings. So,
Wow.
Yeah, that's a...
Well, there's a good end to that story, because I did get you some in the end, didn't I?
Yes, no, maybe.
No.
No.
I don't remember
A Christmas
that.
present this year.
It was a good Why'd you buy the jeweller that's got everything?
That's it.
Yeah, that's true.
No, well, I had the same conversation about the penguin when I went home to Sophie when I came to see you guys, and I said I didn't talk about what it looked like. Talk about the meaning of what it is, and it's different conversation.
Yeah,
you know, even for the less emotional people, it starts that that feeling off, and you buy things like that to feel better or to feel something, don't you?
It's normally the good thing about our business, which is why probably I enjoy it like I do. It's a positive business, generally speaking. It's a positive business. So you're dealing with people generally that are happy. Yeah. They're celebrating. They've never done it this before. It's exciting, and all those things. And you're in a very positive place now. Yeah. Nowadays, you've got so much bad news out there, right? That they just regurgitate the news over and over and over again, and suddenly the inflation figures come through and they're way down, right? Well, they won't talk about that for long, but they will talk about it for a long time when they're up there. We talk ourselves into a black hole if we're not careful. And these people that are coming in to us generally are, celebrating a birthday, as I've said, or wedding anniversary.
Escapism, really.
Yeah. Bad news sells, and that's why it's on. It gets regurgitated. So for people that are looking for inspiration this Christmas, what would you say? So there'd be a few thousand people that download and watch the episode and listen to it on different channels. What would you say to them about Steffans around Christmas time?
Put us to the test.
Put me to the test.
Put us to the test. Come in and see if we are actually like we're saying we are.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And I think that's important. And
and test the theory that every single customer gets the most incredible service, whether that be a free coffee, whether that be a glass of champagne, whether that be free jewellery cleaning, whether that be free engraving that we offer on a plaque on the box. It's all those little touches that we do that means that somebody else doesn't have to shop anywhere else. Yeah, they just shop at Steffans because they know that there's no other reason to go anywhere else, because we're offering the product at the right quality at the right price, and you get all of those added values. we're all about added value. For us, it's never about skimping on the quality. It's never about skimping on or undercutting ourselves on price. It's just about the level of service you get, whether it's a gift wrapping. You know, I often speak about the benchmarks that Steff put in place, and we've just added on it every year.
If you make the finest matchsticks in the world, people will cut a path through a forest to find you. We are an oasis in a desert in this town, and people still have hope while you've got some water available to go and feed from or drink from. And I think that's really, really important. We try to support English companies that are startups. We try to help them because it's that sort of business. It's one of those few businesses that hasn't been wiped out by the internet, actually. Music's now downloaded and all these things, clothes you can buy on the internet. People don't feel that safe buying on the internet jewellery. I've done it myself, where I bought things and I thought I was expecting something really good.
You just want to hold it and see it and feel it, don't you? That's what it's all about.
And it's got to fit, and you want to be able to take it back. You want to be able to speak to
the last thing you want to do is get a watch, for example.
Yeah.
I've had a watch in the past. You look at it, it's lovely.
Yeah.
I want to wear that straight away. That's great. And you put it on. Yeah. And it needs 4 links, and you've got to go somewhere to go and get the links done.
And then they might turn around and say, well, where did you buy it from?
Yeah.
And you go on the internet, you go back to the internet, mate.
You have to go to somewhere else to get it done, and it's this whole, it dilutes the feeling of,
absolutely.
You want to be able to put that watch on.
By the way, I've never said that to anybody.
What?
Go and take it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
No, I know you would, Wesley.
Yeah, you want that feeling of being able to receive that gift in the right manner, put it on, and make you feel good.
Yeah.
But again, Aaron, going back to your point, if people don't buy from shops, there won't be any left to do your links.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the service element. You know, and okay, fine, it might cost you £1 extra, right? But is it worth £1 to prevent you from having the anxiety of worrying about where the hell you take that watch to do it? Yeah. Or doing it yourself and scratching all the links?
There was talk, actually, during COVID, that they were going to charge extra rates to people that sell on the internet to give us a little bit of a chance to keep going. And nothing's happened as yet. And of course, now we've got the possibility of a general election coming up. It probably won't for a game for a while. But somewhere the two should be able to run together. They should be the internet for selling stuff. Because it is convenient. I mean, you know, if I run out of light bulbs, I have to say, I'll go and buy 12 of them.
Go on Amazon and get them next day.
Go and get one.
Yeah.
But now I get 12. So I'm storing all the toilet rolls.
But it isn't a fair playing field.
Yeah.
It just isn't. Yeah. You know, whether it be that we're paying for PPC on Google, right? That really is a ground rent. You know, whichever way you look at it. Yeah. Whichever way you spin it, it's a ground rent. So the fact that some of these big operations and operatives are not paying the correct taxes and various other things, it just doesn't make for a very fair fight. And that's what it is. And you know, and I think people have to understand it's a fight for people like us and for all manner of different businesses up and down the land. You know, we're fighting against colossuses.
Yeah.
And they're only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And, you know, when you want that level of service, it just won't exist.
No, it won't. It never does. The same in our industry. It's, you know, we wanted to start doing telecoms and IT because there's massive businesses out there that will sign a customer up, you get the minimum service, you know, you move on, you're not valued, and we wanted to do something that was just as professional, but a lot more personable. Why can't you have that experience of actually liking your provider? Because if you go out to the market, there's not many people that like their provider that deals with, you know, phones and stuff, because they look at it, it's just a throwaway thing. It's this, you know, they've had bad service, they've not fixed it. It's the phone's not been working for X, Y, and Z. The network's crap. The internet's slow. It's all negative. We want to make sure that when people deal with us, we don't want to be the biggest. We've been going 4.5 years. We've got more 5-star Google reviews than any other company in the industry.
Yeah,
people have been going 20 years.
Yeah,
because we value the feedback. We want the feedback, good or bad, to improve. We're lucky we get good feedback as well, and we can act on the stuff that's not so good. But it's all about the experience, because then when somebody's had an experience from us buying a mobile phone and they get a good experience and it's personable, they can deal with a human being. You know, the big companies you ring up, I did a post about this on LinkedIn 2 days ago, you ring Vodafone, you wait for 2.5 minutes. I rung them, filmed myself doing it, 2.5 minutes, O2, 1.5 minutes. You ring us, 7 seconds. You speak to a human being that wants to help you. even though that's not a new thing,
No.
it's that is being phased out because of AI and automation, and it's just cheaper and easier not to have a human. Well,
you look at how many websites have got telephone numbers now. You know, our
Yeah.
telephone number's so loud and proud.
Yeah.
it's like, call us,
Yeah.
please. We want you to.
yeah,
call
we
us.
want that interaction. Yeah.
We get people asking things at 10 o'clock, at 11 o'clock at night, and
We're the same. I was. We've got some COVID issues this week with staff. We've got a couple of holidays, and we're not a massive business. We had somebody day before yesterday, 8:30. They're out of hours message wasn't routing to the right person. You know, 3 of us in the space about 5 minutes of a message going into. We've got an omni-channel where if you put a case in, it will go through to a WhatsApp group so we can see it. Within like 3 minutes, 3 people out of the 8 people in that group were picking it up within 5 minutes. 8:30 on a Friday night. You know, that's the sort of service we give because it's important. Yeah, and then the level, and like you said about the level that Steph's set for a long time, and that you want to evolve the business to keep going and increase.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same with what we do.
Yeah.
It's just a different thing. We want a personable experience, and if somebody wants to go and buy IT, they'll come to us. We want the responsibility to be able to say, okay, I already buy telephony from them. Do you do this? The amount of times somebody rings up and says, do you do this? Because you already got a trusting relationship. So why go to market and look and get a potential bad experience? We've had people ring up and say, do you do solar? Do you do EV charging points? Do you do printers and scanners, copiers? Do you do IT? Do you do broadband? All these things we've had a few calls about, and it's like, okay, maybe we need to start dropping that into the portfolio, and we have done over the years, and you expand and just keep the same level of quality.
But that's service, Aaron. It's because
Yeah.
you've set the bar.
Yeah, it all
Service,
originates from the service, doesn't
It
it?
used to be called networking.
Yeah.
You know, it still is, obviously. I'm being facetious when I say that. But, you know, you'd go along, you didn't really want to spend the night talking to blokes to do with rugby. In my case, right? But you went because that was networking. And that rugby player you were talking to and shaking hands with would then come in the shop and buy something. That was the networking. It's different now, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is, in effect, networking what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And when you're networking things, it's not as easy as a lot of people think that, oh, I'd like to do that. I'd like to go around, you know, talking to rugby players and networking and stuff. It's not that easy. It's because you've got to actually, you've got to be able to hear what they're saying over often in a crowded room.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to give them good eye contact, which is draining in itself.
Yeah.
And you've also got to stay in touch with that person going forward, and you've got to remember who they are as well.
I think these days it's very easy to have a surface level conversation. It's a lot harder to keep and build on a deeper connection or relationship over time, and that's where you stand apart from other businesses because of the emotion, and that's what I've taken from this. Obviously, I've known your family for a long time. Haven't known much about Steffans specifically as a business, and I've learnt a lot today and previously. But the biggest part I've taken from today is the nature of the emotive connection and the feeling around the product emanating through not only just yourselves, but also everybody you meet within the business, the environment you walk into, how people deal with you as a you know, they put you at ease, they ask questions about you. And want to serve you better and want to deliver something for you that's outstanding.
What I would say is, anybody who's been listening, who's taken the time to listen to this, ask yourself, how many times has Steff always mentioned a brand, right? I haven't been here to sell products.
Yeah.
Christmas is coming up. We hope that people will come in. We are definitely here to sell an experience.
Yeah.
We're not here to sell products. If you don't buy from us, then you don't buy this time. But we hope you'll come back again. So we're not telling you all the brands that we've got, all the different watch brands. We're here saying, if you want good service, if you want us to actually make first of you, when you come in, you'll get that sort of service when you come to Steffans. And that's in both shops.
Actually, if you don't know what you want to buy, we're good at that.
Yeah.
That's actually probably where we excel, because a man that comes in and he just doesn't know, and he's just like, oh, what does my wife want for Christmas? You know, she's got everything, right? We'll find something.
Yeah,
that's what we do. That's what we do. I mean, just last point I must make about customers. I've got one customer who just rings me up and says, "Where's Christmas? Get my wife sorted," and he will ask me to choose what his wife wants for Christmas, and I'm not having prior conversations with his wife. I just know what she likes, and he trusts me enough to give me, you know, tens of thousands of pounds for presents for her for Christmas.
Yeah, I think for guys, Christmas is a really stressful, daunting time because
Yeah.
you know you start off 1st of December. Oh my God, it's December.
Started.
Christmas is only
Yeah.
3 weeks away,
Yeah.
right? And I haven't got an idea what I'm going to buy,
Yeah.
right, for my wife or girlfriend or whatever, right? That week goes by, and you think, well, I can get it on the internet. Actually, next day
there's
delivery,
no rush.
pay extra. There's no
Yeah.
rush. Yeah. Then they get to the point where they're going to buy it. Let's just say on the internet, and whereas before they had 563 of them, they haven't got any now, or they've got one,
Yeah.
right? So then you think, oh my God, I can't buy what I thought I was going to buy. Christmas Eve will always be about men. That's not meant to be sexist. Coming in and saying, have you got such and such a thing? So we have the one day of the year we can say to somebody, well, we did have actually, but we've sold out of them now, right? Because that's what happens, obviously, because people are coming in regularly. That, for me, is our one day of, well, you know, they've got to have what's there, really, in other words. They can't go out.
But
So-
actually, it's not just they haven't bought presents, it's the fact that they think they haven't bought enough presents. So they'll
Yeah.
come in and they'll
Well,
go,
there's
oh,
that as well.
I bought my wife
Yeah.
a dress, but I've got to buy something else, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, they might have already bought something, but the anxiety of not...
Expectation, isn't it? You know, you don't want...
We all want
Don't want your partner to-
Yeah, we want to
Yeah.
please our partners. We want to have a great day on Christmas. We want to eat food and enjoy laughs and fun with family. And you know, and we put ourselves under immense pressure as men. Put ourselves under immense
I mean, you must
I
have
do
been
as
there.
well.
You've been there,
Yeah.
haven't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we all have. Yeah, we all have.
And it is one of those things
Yeah.
that it's not a nice feeling, is it?
No.
It's not comfortable. It's like somebody's like trying to burst out of your body. It's clock's going,
Yeah.
you know, until you get to the door and the door's locked and they're shut early because it's Christmas Eve
Yeah.
at 2:00, gone home. And now you can't go.
By the way, we
Yeah.
don't go up at 2 o'clock.
We don't actually.
yeah,
We stay open late.
No, we
Especially.
do. Yeah, we do.
We do. Oh, it's like we Christmas Eve. Obviously, all the team want to go home, and Dad and I are like, no, come on. There's still going to be some men out there that we need to help.
Yeah.
And again, you know, if you've got that anxious feeling at Christmas time, and you think, I don't know what to buy my partner, my loved one for Christmas, there you go. There's the advert. Come to Steffans. We'll help you.
The one thing I want to finish on, the one thing that is going to stick with me is something both of you have said in different ways, different meanings, but that you sell love.
Yep.
That's
All
I
you
think that,
need is love, love.
and you can sing love as well.
Is all you need. Hey, it's true though.
Absolutely.
And you know, when you look at all of the Beatles songs, and especially in the earlier days, it was all about love.
Yeah.
And that is, if you've got love in your life, you've got everything. If you've got no love in your life, you're
You've got
very,
nothing.
very lonely.
Yeah. Gents, it's been a really good chat, and I found out a lot about you guys individually, you know, past, present, future, what the business is doing, what it means, and hopefully it's been good for you guys as well. And I know there's going to be tons of stuff that people will take away, and for anybody sort of watching, listening to this, reach out to both of you if they want to get in touch and come and find you. Where can they come and find you?
They can find us on Instagram. They can find us on Facebook. They can find us on. I think we're still on LinkedIn. But yeah, look, reach out to us. Any questions anybody's got?
I think telling them where our shop is.
Oh yeah, and we're on the corner of it. Yeah, that was
that was important.
Yeah.
Well, no, but we were talking about digital here. So
No, he didn't say
Whichever you want.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying if you want short, sharp results, message us on Instagram or Facebook, which is obviously Steffans Jewellers, and you can find us on all of the sites. And obviously our store, our exemplary store, which is the biggest jewellers outside of the UK, outside of London in the UK. Fun fact, in terms of square footage. And we're on the corner of Hampton Square, opposite BBC Radio Northampton and the old Savoy.
And we've got a shop in Market Harbour as well,
We have.
which is on a corner position, just like Northampton is.
Yeah.
Just as you come into the town, isn't it, on the right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Best position in town, actually.
Yeah.
It is really, because it's a three-sided shop, 3 sides of windows, which makes it attractive, really. But
Good. Well, hopefully plenty of people that have watched and listened to this will come and see you this Christmas.
And we'll see you at Christmas
Thanks for coming on. Absolutely.
See you soon.
Thanks a lot, guys.
thanks.